race suit. So you came up in the leathers era
Yep.
to Kevlar's. So what a difference has that made?
Well, it's funny, with the leathers and that, as you know yourself, that's what everyone was brought up on. That was the first time actually, it was like starting to go professional, because everyone started getting coloured leathers with the padding in the shoulders and the knees and in the hips. The downside of wearing leathers during a 40-degree heat, you end up being like a jockey, coming out really thin and sweating. When I first wore Kevlar's, it's like it was the same 40-degree heat, and I'm going, why wasn't I wearing these earlier? They're so light. Okay, you're still sweating them, but they're a lot lighter than leathers. They are durable. If you come off, they don't just fall apart. But yeah, Kevlar's are so much lighter and better. I wouldn't say better than leathers. Leather's always going to be great in any sport. But yeah, the Kevlar's, if you're wearing the right armoury underneath, like your motocross armoury or your back protectors and all of that, well, you know, you can quite easily take them off in between races and cool down.
So we've touched on all that sort of thing. In regards to competitors, who do you really look forward to racing against, because you know you're going to be hard racing, but it's also going to be safe, and you feel very trusting in that person? Like, who's one of your favourites in that regard?
Well, favourite, you'd have to put up there Darren Talor, you know, with a close Brodie Cohen. But I look forward to racing everybody. But what I found over the years, and a lot of people have told me about it, and I'm starting to look at it now, is that all the injuries that I've had is when I've been riding B grade, not an A grade. So that sort of tells you the difference in scale of riding techniques.
Right, and I think to clarify that point, I definitely understand what you mean, but to clarify that, I think once you hit a certain level, you understand how to race smarter without trying too hard.
Exactly.
And I think that's where things fall over. Whereas, to give you an example, in V8 Supercar, Jason Wright in the late 90s was with the Pertec team and did very well. And then when he got his own team in the mid-2000s, he was always stuck up the back in qualifying that.
Yep.
And just crashed his brains out constantly.
Yeah.
Not from his doing, but it was from the lower
grades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not to say there is no place for B grade riders, that's just fine, but I think put it this way, with Brodie Cohen in particular, because I know Brodie, I've noticed his attitude and way he approaches racing is that next level again to the last time.
It's completely different. If you talk to like the likes of going back a bit, your Ricky Munro and your Andrew Cleve, and even when you talk to Russell Mitchell, they've got that distinctive flair up the top. Or even when you talk to Darren Talor, they're like this. But the gap between an A-grade rider and like an up-and-coming A-grade rider, or top B-grade at low A, I think is still that far. There's your true A-grade riders. There is A-grade riders, but there's still that gap. But saying that, everyone's got to start from somewhere.
Yeah, and I think the problem is it's all breaking through the next roof of the ability, and I think personally that it comes down to just constant laps, constant racing.
I agree. You still need the laps, but also, as they say in the saying, to go faster, you ride slower.
It's something I wanted to touch on. So a lot of people don't actually understand that, yes, you are going very fast, but because you're breaking down your race into what you want to do and you're planning and trying to react in that, is it a thing where it actually slows down to you?
It can do. Sometimes, well, as a passenger, sometimes to me it's funny. I'd be either going down the back straight or going down the main straight, and it's like tunnel vision. And I don't know if people understand that, but what it is, it's just you're coming out of one corner and you're just looking at the next corner coming up, and it's like not going fast, but it's slow. I don't know if anyone understands that. Where I don't know if it's the concentration that you're doing to do the right thing going into the corner, but sometimes when I've been riding with Tim, we come out of one corner, especially at Tamworth and how big it is, the next corner comes up that quick, it's like riding on a small track.
Yeah, and that's the thing I definitely noticed last night was the top speeds and the different lines available and the different ways to attack what speed is where. And touching on that, is there a way to have a plan to your racing, or is it something you've got to adjust to on the fly?
Well, with Timmy and I as a team, and I think I'm the senior in the team, I try to keep Tim calm, but also too, I just give him very simple instructions, as in maintain the corner speed and make sure you come out of the corners just right to line up for the next corner. But as you know yourself, he's the man that's on the throttle, and I've just got to follow him around whatever he does anyway.
Yeah, and I think what I also wanted to touch on was the mental side of things. So people don't understand that there is a massive mental aspect to the game, but also there's a little mind game to go on. And I remember growing up as a kid watching people, fake starts and things like that so people would touch the tapes. What are some of the things in the past that you've seen and you went, what's that happening for?
Yeah, it's funny, we did touch on that earlier this afternoon or this morning, where in the time I used to laugh, and I still do laugh. There's two things. First one was back in the day when Andrew Cleve, Darren Chalora and Glenn O'Brien used to ride, especially if they're at Mildura, and it used to be a race to find out who was going to be the last one into the gate. Say for instance, if Andrew Cleve went into the gate and Darren's still behind him, he'll pull out of the gate, and same with Glenn O'Brien, pull out of the gate, come up behind him and wait for him to move in, so they're all three of them moving at the same time. As you know yourself, that's just mind games. But it was a constant thing, especially on big meetings. You'll see these big names always doing it. Didn't matter where they were, they'd always do it. The other thing is, I think it's a bit of a mind game too, and I reckon it's a solo thing, is what we call gardening, and where you get the passenger to get off and either put a trench in or make it a little bit firmer at the gate. So, but everyone to their own, I think, on that one.
Yeah, I believe so, and I guess if it works for you, it's like the whole in the fighting game where people talk trash about their opponents and it messes their composure up, and it works. If it works for you, that's fine. If it doesn't, whatever. But I just think that's another aspect. But touching back on the mental aspect, how tough is it during a race meeting when things aren't going good to keep your composure and chase the end goal of going better?
Yeah, funny you should say that. As you saw last night, Tim and I really had a bad night last night, really bad. And I was at the end trying to work out what I can do better, or what I can help Tim to go better in that. We're lucky we've got a lot of good friends, and I'm always looking for advice if there's something going wrong. Someone from outside the fence can see what's going on inside the fence on the track. Prime example, last night we had Wayne Thompson in our corner, although he was working with the Bonds on all three of their bikes, and that he came over and gave Timmy a bit of advice and gave me a bit of advice, and at the end it worked, but it was like too late by the time we got things really sorted. But at the end of the day, the bike wasn't performing the way it was supposed to do anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's such an exciting sport, is because of the variables. How much talking goes on when you're actually going out to the tapes or coming back in?
Well, you've met Tim.
Yeah, so not much.
Yeah. So Tim says about 2 words out of everything. So I suppose I'm the guy on the back that sort of gets in his ear. What I try to do is just get Tim to calm down, work on a few plans that we always do. Like I said, corner speed and straight speed, making it all smooth, and that's virtually. And then I just leave it up to him. We might have 1 or 2 words when we come back in if he wants me to change my style a little bit, but virtually I don't get 2 words out of Tim very much anyway.
Yeah, I understand that, and I think that just comes back to personalities. Like, I just think people have 2 totally different personalities, but the interesting thing is you're working towards the same common goal.
Yeah, like in teams before, like I was saying with Kafey and Wright and Russell Mitchell and the other guys back home in Adelaide, we always used to talk all the time and get a bit of an idea. I haven't ridden with Dion Lynn, but he's seen me ride a couple of times. Where were we? North Brisbane. I think I was riding with Dennis Tickle when we were doing a practice, and he's come up and said, "You did a couple of mistakes there, didn't you, Donny?" I said, "Yep." So people like that, it's good to get that feedback. And I'm always, personally myself, I'm always looking for that feedback to better myself or to correct myself what I'm doing wrong.
And isn't that interesting that in a sport so competitive, you've got people that are so highly competitive and up there, but still willing to help?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And it's hard to say, is that I suppose a lot of these people that give you the help are the ones from the old days that have been there for a long time. And as a competitor, you find that what feedback you get is good. I remember going back many years ago when I first rode with Darren Kay from the Grand Slam at Murray Bridge, and I heard the announcer said that looks, because I wasn't actually riding with Darren at the beginning of the meet, I was riding at the last race, and the compare team says that looks like Donny Morris's style, and it was me on the back.
Wow, how cool is that?
He didn't even know I was on the back.
Wow. And so away from the track and all that sort of thing, what's a normal week for you? Like, what's your career?
Monday to Fridays I work for a mop called Axo Noble International Paints as a glorified storeman. There's only 2 of us there selling industrial paints. The other side of it is that at the moment, I've been playing touch football for a long time now, and at Wallsend, which is just up the road from here where I'm living. I've made the Wallsend 55 for the club to play with them, and now I'm training up to play for the NTLs for the over 60s at Coffs Harbour, which is beginning of March.
Wow. Are people in your career in sidecars that you've looked up to, or you've really been happy to be, I suppose, put on the same level or even compared anywhere near them?
In my own eyes, I keep a high regard for Tom, Gordon and Gibson Atherton back in Adelaide that got me into the sport, and I was virtually part of the family where, and I wouldn't say anything different with them. They taught me and looked after me that well as a young fella. Over the years, I'll be like everybody else. You got your Andrew Cleve, your Glenn O'Briens, your Darren Trelaws, even your Russell Mitchells. All these guys that have developed the sport and have done this and done that. I've always got high regard for them.
And how much longer do you see this all going on, Donny?
Liz just said it then. I don't know. I know I'm at an age where it's a young man's sport, but yeah, it's hard when you've got your own son racing at Adelaide, and I'll race against him too, but yeah, I've got no answer to that one at the moment.
Well, let's just touch on that. So, what is your son's name and who does he race with?
Okay, my eldest son's Scotty Morris. He rides the Shane Rudloff back in Adelaide. Pretty well known down there. Yeah, and those guys have done pretty well. Yeah, so it makes it very competitive between us when we get together.
And what's it like lining up at the Tates against your own son?
I start laughing.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. It's like, I remember going back when he first came over and we went to Tamworth, and he was riding with a guy by the name of Steve Brown. And I was riding with young Mick Farrell Jr. and we were on Mick's Kawasaki. And this is Scotty's first ride coming over, first interstate and first ride against the big boys. And he said he was going to wipe my backside with it. I didn't even see him at the tapes. We took off, and as far as I was concerned, they were still sitting there.
Wow. And has there been any times where he's beaten you and just would not let up about it?
We'll put it this way, Shane and him have buddy stitched us up a few times on different bikes that I've been on, which is good. Also, what Scotty and I get into is the classic side of things on the old classic bikes, and we enjoy doing the father and son thing together when we can. We don't own a bike ourselves, but I'm pretty lucky. I've got friends like the likes of John Atherton and John Bennett, old friends back from Adelaide, that lend me their second bike to have a play with, and when I go for a ride on that, I'll get Scotty on the back when I can.
So we're winding this down at the moment, and this has sort of been very cool for me because we're literally just sitting in the living room talking. What would be a goal that you haven't achieved so far in sidecars that you think would still be achievable in your career?
Good question. I've won the Western Australian title with Russell Mitchell. I've run second in the South Australian title riding with Andrew German, who's from Victoria. I've been in numerous Australian titles, but really haven't gone any further. Well, I've got on the main event, but really haven't finished on the top three. I suppose in a way, enjoying myself in the sport when you have big meetings like that is actually getting on the podium. I suppose the biggest thing is most probably getting on the podium for an Aussie title, or which I haven't done yet, is the Oceania FIM titles or something like that, or getting invited to those sort of things, or even going over to New Zealand and racing those guys over there, which I enjoy racing against people who come over here to have a crack at us.
What advice would you have given if you had the chance to see yourself at 20 years old? What advice would you give yourself at 20 years old in the sport?
Keep learning, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. You take a bit of advice like a pinch of salt, and learn as you go along, because Speedway is a learning curve. You never stop learning, and I'm still learning now, and I'm nearly 64 now.
Right, and lastly, who would you like to thank for over your career that you can think of? It doesn't matter if you miss anyone, but who's the names that you can think of now that you probably don't get enough thanks that you'd want to thank?
Well, I suppose in one sense, since I've been over here in New South Wales, Darren Cave, he's helped me out a lot. We rode for about 5 years. But everybody I rode with over the years, and there's so many to name, is that every one of them have actually helped me along the line of doing bits and pieces on the bike, or learning a bit more than what on the skills what I'm doing now.
Well, I'm happy that we're having this talk today because, yes, you are at the older end of competing, but we got up, we walked around today, and I think I complained more about being sore from running around filming than you did competing.
Yeah, don't worry, I was feeling very second-hand this morning, buddy, after what Tim and I went through last night.
Yeah, but like I just want to say to you, thanks for the hospitality and thanks for sitting down and talking.